week, facing a very good Louisville team. We're also excited to be playing in Land in the Dome, which our players and our coaches, I know our fans enjoy playing there. Looking at Louisville, their defense, one of the top defenses in the country last year. They got a very good defensive coordinator that used to be at Georgia that we went against each other a few times. He's very good at what he does. He really makes the offense earn it. They've added some very talented transfers from Georgia and from TCU that I think are all very good players, for their defense. Offensively, they're very multiple. They present a lot of different challenges to what they do. They've got a very talented running back. I think they got a very talented receiver in the quick kid, and they're going to present some challenges to our defense. Will, from his standpoint, he's just really stressing communication in this first game. That'll be very important. Being able to adjust, and not just on defense, but first games are all about adjustments. And you've got all year to think about your plan, how you're going to stop, how you're going to move the ball. And usually at the end of the first quarter, everything kind of clears up. But you have to be able to adjust. I know Will's been communicating that to our defense, and really from a defense standpoint, being prepared for the multiple quarterbacks I also think is very important. They're all a little bit different and unique. Offensively, if you look at our depth chart, I think you see 8 freshmen on the 2 deep. I think that's what really stands out to me, and I don't believe Kerryon Johnson's on that. He will play, and he'll play this first game. So a lot of youth will be on the field. And probably my biggest stress is just the new guys being out there for the first time, holding on to the ball, protecting the ball. That's always a big factor in the first games, along with special teams as far as that goes. But overall, I do like where our offense and our defense mentality is, and it's just going to be a matter of getting those young guys out there, letting them play, letting them do their thing. On that update on a personnel situation, Myron Burton is no longer on our team. It's a mutual decision, and we wish him nothing but the best in the future.
Questions?
Guys, you got Duke listed as a starter. Are you going to start him in this first?
Well, it's or, so it could be a possibility. We'll see how this week goes.
Does that stem from off-the-field stuff?
Well, just working his way back up, like we talked about early. And so, anytime we have an or, it could be one or the other.
Coach, particularly in the opener, what is the approach for preparing for a quarterback that you're not sure who's going to be starting, and possibly multiple quarterbacks?
Well, I think that's the key. You got to be prepared for all of them, and you've got to predict what they do well and kind of what their plan will be utilizing each one of them. That's a challenge, especially for the first game. If you're playing somebody week 3 or 4, usually they show their hand and you kind of have a good idea, but that'll be one of the unique challenges of this first game.
Coach, you look all around, there's quarterback quandaries everywhere. How much of an advantage or comfort has it been to have that position nailed down?
It has been good that we've known who our starting quarterback is going to be, since spring. And I think it's been good for him too, and for his teammates. So, we feel like he's prepared. I know he's to the point that, he's tired of everybody talking about him, predicting this. He just wants to get out there and play. He wants to prove himself. And so I think he's in a very good spot mentally right now, going into this first game.
Do you consider him among these inexperienced quarterbacks, or the fact that he's been around for a couple of years?
Well,
what kind of
sure.
confidence do you have in his experience?
Yeah, well, we have some very good information on Jeremy. He started games. Matter of fact, he started SEC games. He actually started opener, and he's played. But there's nothing like it being your team, and you're going to start your whole for the whole season mentality. So, we'll just see how it goes. But like I said, I like where he's at. He's not reading the headlines. Matter of fact, I'm gonna bet he's pretty embarrassed on some of the predictions and the highs. But he just wants to prove it. And so, I think that because of that, he's in a really good spot.
Along those lines, Gus, have you decided to name captains?
We're getting close.
On the on special teams, talk a little bit about some of the decisions there, and how's Ian Shannon been as a kicker and well as a punter?
Yeah, well, first of all, Kevin Phillips is going to be our punter, and he's won that job. He had a very good fall camp, and did some very good things. He made it very competitive, and like you said, he also kicks. And so the first part of fall camp, he was really concentrating on the punting, and then he kind of transitioned, and he's got a great leg. So, you know, he'll provide us depth in both those areas. Daniel Carlson's had a very good, you know, fall camp. It's really helped him focus on just the kicking part and not having to punt. And it seems like, you know, his leg is probably a little stronger because of that.
Yes, Trey Williams listed at both inside linebacker spots. What has he done to kind of throw himself in the mix at both positions?
Yeah, well, you know, he's a smart guy, and you know, Coach Muschamp has him knowing both those positions, and they've rotated a lot, you know, in fall camp, and so I think you'll see the same thing, you know, the first game.
With all that experience at linebacker, can you talk about where you are confidence-wise with Cassie and Chris Frost, and just where you see that position?
Yeah, you know, the great thing about what Will does is competition every day, and anytime you have competition, it brings out the best in everybody. The thing about it, we do have information from the older guys because they played a lot of football, but at the same time, they're learning a new defense, and you know, so like I said, you'll see multiple guys this first game.
You guys, the best season y'all have had, Auburn's had when you were here, 2010-13, there wasn't, Auburn was kind of under the radar, maybe adopting the underdog mentality. Can you tell in camp if their approach is good when the expectations are a lot higher, or do you have to find it out?
To be honest with you, from a team standpoint, I mean, every year, whether people predict you, okay, to be good or not predict, it's the same mindset, same mentality if you're in this room, you know, from a team standpoint. So, you know, we have the same approach, and I like where our guys are at. I mean, they're not reading the press and predicting, you know, all this stuff. They're worried about this first opponent, and they've got a good mindset. And we're going to take it one game at a time. And you know, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, look at the freshmen on the list. I mean, that really sticks out to me. And I knew that before we put the depth chart together, but when you see it, you know, the reality hits you. A bunch of young guys, so there's going to be some growing pains. And we know that, but we think those guys that are going to play, those young guys are pretty talented. And so they just need to grow up in a hurry, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, you never had a quarterback go through multiple years as a backup like Jeremy before. What's something that you've noticed differently from him as opposed to a David Johnson or Applin or Nick that's just a little different because of the experience?
That's a good question. You know, I do know this. I mean, he really thinks like Coach Lashley does. I mean, you know, as far as even game planning and what we look for, I mean, but those other guys that you just mentioned were phenomenal, and they had all that too. But I think it's just one more year of experience probably that comes with thinking exactly how your coaches think, and I think there's great power in that.
Having a guy like that, how much does that help as a play caller that you know that he knows what he likes to do in certain things in certain
You know, I think
situations?
that's big because, you know, a lot of times it's not what a coach knows or, yeah, this is there. It's what a player feels comfortable with and what he is comfortable doing. So now he can do a lot of different things, but it's good that he knows our offense good enough. He knows our personnel around him good enough that he can have ownership in the game plan. So that's probably the biggest difference from a guy that maybe is a first-year starter.
What did Rock Thomas do to get started running back?
You know, Rock is a guy that has had a good spring, had a good fall camp. He'll be the first one to go out there, but those other two guys will play. And, you know, we kind of talked about that for a couple of weeks, and they've all three earned the right to play, but, you know, Rock will be the first one out there.
Was there a reason why you didn't put an order between Rock Thomas or Peyton like you usually do, even though you still have a battle going on?
No, not really. I mean, I wouldn't read anything between that. I mean, you're going to see us play all three of them. And, you know, we got some question marks as coaches. We'd like to see them in game situations now. And, you know, hopefully, you know, some will rise to the top.
What's Robinson got to do to move up? Because he obviously had a slow start and had catching up to do.
Well, I mean, you know, he is still learning the offense. And, you know, but he can run the ball. So, you know, like I said, he'll be out there that first game too, and we'll see what happens.
You're pleased with what Rock has done in the offseason, though, to add weight and to improve?
He's definitely gotten bigger. He's kept his speed. He's more comfortable now. He knows what's going on. You know, last year we had those two seniors that were ahead, and you know, when you lose two seniors, you know, he had an opportunity to step up from the leadership standpoint. And, we've seen him grow, you know, not just this spring, but more importantly in the fall.
That's what are you seeing from Ryan Davis? to get him going?
Well, he can help us. He's athletic. He wants to be good. He really reminds me of Marcus Davis when Marcus was a true freshman. Of course, you know, he helped us quite a bit, but he's a guy that played quarterback in high school that understands the offense, and it doesn't seem like the moment's too big, at least so far for him.
How does Myron's departure affect the X? And was Tony moved from the Y back out to the X?
Yeah, we got 3 or 4 guys that can play both, and so we'll move people around probably more than we have in the past. But, you know, we do have some depth at receiver that we feel good about.
I know Casanova's listed as an award there, but as a guy who was number 2 in tackles last year, led the team in 2013, has there been any frustration, disappointment in him? Because, I mean, it's somewhat surprising that a guy like that is not a bona fide.
Well, like I said, but what Will does, they compete every day. And I wouldn't read too much in the or. I mean, we'll see what happens once we get out there and play and see who's playing well and go from there.
How do you handle the co-starters at left guard during the game?
You know, here's the thing about it. Both of them have really done an outstanding job. Both of them deserve to play. We've split the reps, you know, in fall camp. And, you know, it's a little bit unique. We've not done that very often, but we feel comfortable with both those guys.
Petway and Cox more in the mold of Crush, and how important do you feel like that will be for this year's?
Yeah, it's going to be very important. That traditionally has been a very important position in our offense. And, you know, we've had different body types at that position, but both those guys are kind of old school football player mentalities. They're very physical. At the point of attack, they both can catch a football. They're both athletic. They both played tailback type situations in high school. So it gives us a lot of versatility. You know, they just need some reps. I mean, they need some experience. We'll see how they do.
Will Coach Damon and Dancy both play in the game?
They'll both play, yes.
Talk about the competition between Golson and Dampier.
Yeah, it was good competition at center, which is always good. You know, Golson earned the starting job. You know, he's really done a very good job for a guy that hadn't played center before. But he's a smart guy. He's a great competitor, and he's tough. And you know, Dampier's been in our offense for a while. You could really tell him to take that next step too. And in our offense, you know, that security of having 2 centers that can snap the ball, that can make the calls, and keep the timing of your offense, that's a very good feeling going into the season.
Bobby Petrino mentioned crossing paths with you when you were in the high school ranks recruiting one of your players. Was he referring to Mitch at that point, or was he talking about Red, or how far back does that go?
You know, I'm really not for sure.
What did Jalen Harris kind of show you as a true freshman that was able to have him win that job?
Yeah, Jalen is a guy that's really came in, and really what's impressed me is how physical he's been as a true freshman. You know, we knew when we recruited him, we needed him to help us early. And as far as the blocking and the physical part, I mean, that's really what stood out to me. And, you know, he played a similar position in high school, in his high school offense, and I think that's helped him too.
How's the tight end position? Has it evolved at all in your offense as far as trying to get the ball to them more? Or?
You know, you see us from year to year be a little bit different, you know, with the tight end. So, you know, I don't want to tell all our secrets here, you know, with the first game, but, you know, we'll have a tight end on the field from time to time.
You didn't use the Batman formation too much last year. I don't think you went for a 2-point conversion much. How confident are you in either Tyler, or if you had to go to Kevin as a holder in that position to run it?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes to that, don't want to show our hand either, but, you know, we did do it 2 years ago.
Coach, how do you talked about the team dealing with expectations. How do you personally deal with the expectations?
Yeah, you know, from a coach's standpoint, it's a lot easier. I mean, you get tunnel vision, and you lock in on your team, and you're just trying to prepare your team for the next game. And so, you know, but, you know, me personally, big picture wise, I love being at Auburn, because Auburn's a place that expects to win championships, and it's been traditionally seen that you can do that here. And so that's the fun part for me. And you know, but from a coach's standpoint, I mean, we're worried about this first game, you know.
Coach, with, like you said, the 8 freshmen on the 2 deep, and we're going to see even more play.
Yeah.
How much of that is the confidence that you have in those guys? How much of that has been by necessity?
Well, I think it's a little both. I mean, we lost a lot of guys on offense. I mean, what do we got, 4 returning starters? I mean, you know, a new quarterback, and then we got these young guys, and, you know, we recruited them. We told them we expect you to come in and play, but they had to earn it, and they did that. And so it's just a matter, we think they're talented, and we think they're all going to be very good players. It's just a matter of they got to grow up, and I told them the other day, we got to grow up in a hurry. I got to go up faster than most teams, and like I said, we're probably going to have some growing pains. When you play freshman, that's part of it. We got to overcome those growing pains early. We need these guys to grow up and, you know, play solid football in a short period of time.
You've been impressed with what Petrino's been able to do with quarterbacks over the years, and do you think for that very fact that maybe that's why you downplay the doesn't matter who starts with a quarterback, you believe that they might be pretty good?
Well, I mean, you look at his track record. I mean, he's very good. He's a very good offensive coach. I mean, he's everywhere he's been, they put up points and numbers, and you know, he's very good at it. And so I just think that's a tribute to him, that he can take any quarterback and, you know, make him a very good player. And he knows how to utilize people. He knows how to get the ball to his best players, which a lot of times that gets overlooked in college football. There's a lot of coaches that don't get the ball to their best players with what they do best, and he does that. So, you know, he's one of the best there is at calling offensive games too.
How much of the challenge is a game like this for your coaches on the box and the field? Because as you said, it's all about adjustments that first game.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you lean on rep in situations like this?
Yeah, I mean, you lean on your coaches a lot, and you know, I think the big thing is you've got to have a plan for all the what ifs. I mean, you got your plan in all 3 phases, but you got to have an answer for all the what ifs, and that's the challenge. The challenge of a first game. Every coach in America, you just got to have your answers on what ifs, and because there's always something a little different.
When you go into a season opener and it's the first play of the season, do you already have it drawn up? Do you know exactly what you're going to do? Do the players know even the night before so they feel more comfortable?
There's a chance of all the above with that. You know, you say that 5 every day, but you want your guys to know. But every situation in the game, you may get the ball on a punt return. You may get the ball at the 20-yard. I mean, so every situation is different. So yes, to answer your question, as a coach, you do have your ideas of what you're going to do the first play, and you do let your players know what you are thinking for the first play. And so, yes.
Mike Horton, is he a guy that you prefer to redshirt, or are you planning to play him?
You know, right now he's in the 2 deep. He's really caught our eye. He's extremely athletic. He's extremely strong. He's going to be a very good player for us in the future, we feel like. So we're going to keep giving him reps and practice, and we'll just see what happens, you know, as we get to game 3 or something like that.
Well, I guess one other Jeremy question is, what has been the key to him staying patient, player of this physical talent to have a subordinate role for a couple of years?
I think it's his character. I think it's the way he was brought up with his parents. I think that's the two things.
Anything else? All right, Coach, thanks.
All right, thank you all. No questions about the win?